Welcome to Love, Laughter, and Limits. I'm Tom Dozier, and this lesson is PHE, the secret ingredient of a successful home. This class will teach you an important principle of being a successful parent, and one that will greatly enhance your whole parenting experience. So PHE is the secret ingredient of a successful home. Does your home have it? We all want our homes to be a place where children learn to be responsible, to behave well, and grow up into happy, healthy, well-adjusted adults. A successful home is a place where children feel loved and accepted, behave well, and successfully navigate the difficult teenage years to become an independent adult. We try to teach our children to work, such as chores and homework, to learn appropriate social skills, to feel connected to the family, to gain the skills necessary to be a successful individual. We try to minimize the peer influence of our teens and hope that our kids will make good choices as adolescents. Well, there's much that we can do, but with all of our doing, there's a secret ingredient of a successful home that your home needs to have, and it's PHE. Yes, PHE, a positive home environment. That's the secret ingredient. A man I respect said that children need sunlight. They need happiness. They need love and nurture. They need kindness and refreshment and affection. Every home, regardless of the cost of the house, can provide an environment of love, which will be an environment of salvation. And by salvation, the dictionary first definition is protecting from harm, loss, or destruction, and that's sure appropriate for your kids because we all want to protect our kids from harm or destruction. You know, sunlight will enable our children to behave well, the sunlight that we provide, that we smile on them, and it will help them learn and grow well. We need to create a safe, positive home where our children learn that when they do good things, that our countenance will smile on them. We need to create a home where children learn to exercise their ability to choose in positive ways and to enjoy the positive consequences, the positive payoffs for so doing, that it'll work for them. Well, creating a positive home environment can be much harder than making kids do chores or homework, which can be really tough. Or even making them say, "I'm sorry." You know, it's easy to force something like that, but it's hard to get that feeling. And the same with that positive home environment. It can be much harder than doing specific things we know we should do. And one reason is that a big part of creating that positive home environment is responding to things around us in a positive way. Now, unfortunately, this is highly influenced by the way that we were raised and the habits that we have developed. So to have this positive home environment, we need to catch our kids being good. A family counselor I know said, if your child isn't doing something to irritate you, then she must be doing something right. Figure out what it is and say something positive about it. You know, some people do this naturally, but many or even most of us do not. For example, my wife was working on a tie quilt at a friend's house, and the friend's daughter was there and wanted to help by cutting the yarn between the knots, and she was bugging my wife about it. So my wife asked the girl to please wait until she finished the row, and she went ahead and tied the row. Now, once she finished the row, she could have given the natural response, which would have been, "Okay, it's your turn now," or "Okay, you can cut the yarn now." But the positive home environment response she used was, "Thank you for waiting patiently. You can cut the yarn now." And by being aware and taking a few extra seconds, she increased that positive home environment, that positive environment. And by the way, the girl beamed and continued to wait patiently for her turn. Now, an expert in this field is Dr. Glenn Latham, and he's given some really great advice on trying to create this positive environment in your home. And one of the things we need to do is catch our kids being good. So the first suggestion he makes is to acknowledge appropriate behavior in some positive way, right? To let your kids know that you're aware of the good things that they're doing. You know, a gesture, a glance, a smile, a touch, a word, a nice word, a note, some way of letting them know that you're aware that they're doing good stuff. The research shows that as parents, we ignore 95 to 97% of our kids' good behavior. And when it comes to bad behavior, man, we jump right on it. So we need to resist that. We need to really notice the good. The second thing Dr. Latham suggests is to acknowledge appropriate behavior casually and briefly. 3 to 5 seconds, less than a dozen words. So it'd be something like the kids are playing nicely and you say, "Kids, thank you for playing so nicely, I love it. Thank you for playing so nicely, I love it." 8 words, right? A couple of seconds, less than 3 seconds, maybe 3. So you just want to say something nice and keep moving. Now, if you have a case where the kids, let's say you have a 6-year-old helping the 3-year-old find their shoes, and you notice it, so you say, "Hey, Joe, thanks for helping your little brother find his shoes. That's so nice of you. That's so sweet." And he says, "But I hate my little brother." And you want to that's a junk response, and it's pretty typical. And you just want to turn and keep on going. See, he's jerking your chain, trying to get a little more interaction. But you don't. You just turn and move on. But you drop in those little positives and keep it coming. And then the third suggestion from Dr. Latham is to acknowledge appropriate behavior intermittently. We don't have to do it every time. It would get old. It would get boring. And just every once in a while, you want to catch them being good. And you may do a reminder by putting a picture slightly out of position, or put something in an unusual spot, or a loose-fitting rubber band on your wrist, something that says, "Hey, say something nice to your kids." And make sure that you make it while they're doing the appropriate behavior. When you're catching them being good and noticing their good behavior, it has to be right after the good behavior, not when they're behaving badly. Now, the problem, as I mentioned before, that we are much more likely to notice the things we don't like than the things we do. About 4 to 5 times more likely, in fact. So to keep that positive home environment, we need to avoid responding to children in a negative way. And this seems to be a much harder part of having that positive home environment. It's keeping quiet about the little things our kids do that bug us. We have to stay cool and calm and collected. You know, maybe it's a name-calling problem, or complaining, or whining, or messiness, or being slow to comply, or even non-compliance. You know, the list is virtually endless of the things that kids can do that are inappropriate and annoying. And most of us are inclined to nip it in the bud, right? We jump right on the problem and tell the kids to stop that right now. And even if we remain calm in the process, we're still hurting that positive home environment. And when we get upset, then it's even worse. So we actually get trapped by focusing on these problems, and that focusing on the problem tends to not get rid of it. It tends to make it happen more and more. So, and the other problem is that when we focus on those negatives and react to it, we're almost always coercive in that response. See, we're trying to force our kids to behave as they should. And that coercive response gives us this escape, avoidance, and kids wanting to fight back, and it just destroys that positive home environment. Now, because it is out of style to spank kids, at least in some places, at least in many places now, many parents try to talk their kids to death. They just try to talk them into it and explain it over and go on and on and on. And it's just using logic, and it's still coercive, and it still destroys the positive home environment. and it doesn't work, right? Now, I'm not saying that children should be able to do anything they want, by no means. But in general, our children need to be making good choices and enjoying the pleasant, positive results of those choices. And even if your children are doing what is proper, if they're doing it simply to avoid getting in trouble, then you don't have a positive home environment. Now, there's something that Dr. Joseph Catella brought up and explained called the general level of positive reinforcement in the home. And that is how much we're smiling, saying, thank you, I like that, way to go, I appreciate that. The smiles, it's very much like having that positive environment, but of noticing them being good. And that if we have a low general level of positive reinforcement in the home, we're going to have a high occurrence of inappropriate behavior. Now, this is a cause and effect relationship, and if we just raise the general level of positive reinforcement, we will automatically find that there's a sharp drop in the occurrence of inappropriate behavior. So if we get that positive home environment going where we're smiling and noticing the things that our kids are doing appropriate, we will get that wonderful drop in inappropriate behavior. And it's almost magical, right? It happens so fast and it works so well. So give that a try and see if you can raise that general level of positive reinforcement and get that drop in that annoying, irritating behavior. Now, when it comes to having positive and negative interactions with your kids, one thing you can do is just count and see how many positive interactions do I have for each negative interaction. And there was some great research done in terms of verbal language acquisition of young children, and they found that in families that were safe and had a high probability of the children growing up into without significant problems, they had 6 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction. So it was 6 positive, 1 negative. Now, in families where they were high risk, and it was very likely that the kids were going to have some form of problems in childhood or adolescence, there were 2 negative interactions for every 1 positive. Okay, so it was 6 to 1, can't even do that with my hands, versus 1 to 2. And they were flipped over completely. And Dr. Latham asked us to try to have 8 positive interactions to every 1 negative, because there's things that we can do like smiles and winks and blowing them a kiss and touching them that are associated, that are positive interactions that are not verbal. As Dr. Latham said, pleasant, positive interactions between parents and grandparents and the children always, in the long run, produce the best results. So look for those pleasant, positive interactions and keep them coming. So please, don't worry, be happy, right? Are you a happy parent? You need to be. Happy parents produce a positive home environment. Happy parents produce happy children. And no matter how your kids act, you should stay above it all. You know, at times your children may be in a bad mood, but if you will just continue to have that good mood, that good positive home environment, the children will have the bad mood, but for a short time. Now, when it comes to mood, there's some bad news and good news. The bad news is that your general mood is 50% biology. It's your genetic inheritance. And about another 10% is your general circumstances, which are quite hard to change. But the good news is that 40% of your mood, your level of happiness, is based on day-to-day behavior that you do and how you think of yourself and others. So if you find yourself short-tempered, work on it. If you find yourself growling, work on it. Look for the positive. You know, if you become annoyed and irritated or angry with your children, then that's a really, devastates the positive home environment. And I hate to say it, but this places your children at risk. So staying calm and upbeat and hopeful has a very positive influence on your children and even on teenagers and problem teenagers. So work to be happy and have that positive home environment. And you may say, but the kids are so annoying. How can I smile and stay calm when the kids are doing so many bad things and behaving so badly? Well, it is a tough situation, but I find in working with parents that if the parents will do something that really works, that can be positive, then you can get better child behavior going, and it's much easier to smile and be happy. Now, at Love, Laughter, and Limits, we teach you those basic skills, right? We will teach you how to do something different. And the things that we teach here are based in sound scientific research. And the skills taught here really work. You know, try them. You will be amazed. And for example, just try raising the general positive mood in your home and that general level of positive reinforcement, and you will find that sharp drop in inappropriate behavior. It's a functional relationship, a cause and effect relationship. So expect ups and downs, but be persistent, and please be positive. Smile, right? It's our responsibility to create a positive, loving world in our homes, a safe place where children behave well because they enjoy the pleasant consequences of doing so, rather than to avoid the unpleasant consequences of behaving badly. It's a world in which the child thinks, I know my parents will acknowledge and appreciate me, rather than thinking, I'm only doing this because I don't want to get beat on, either verbally or physically. And that is all the difference in the world, folks. If a child is doing something because your countenance is going to smile on them versus doing it so they don't get griped at. Well, it's your home and it's your home environment. So take charge of it. Don't turn it over to your kids. It is your right and your responsibility to take charge of your home environment. You can create a positive home environment. And when we create that positive home environment along with teaching and living in a way that's a good example to our children, we will have a home where the children will have a high probability of internalizing our family values, successfully navigating the difficult years of adolescence, and growing up into healthy, happy, and responsible adults. So thank you for watching PHE, the secret ingredient of a successful home. I'm Tom Dozier, wishing you an abundance of love and laughter in your family, along with limits to help your children behave well and be happy. Thank you.